got the flywheel spinning now, you're in hypergrowth and you're trying to keep yourself there. What's the most important thing to get right? There's strategic issues, like you talked about, some of the strategic choices you made. There's people issues, having the right people. And then there's, the whole function of trying to have processes in place that will scale, over time. So how would you prioritize, those types of things?
To me, it's values are the most important one. Values, and then your purpose and your vision, right? Because you can quickly, as you scale, you quickly outstrip the ability of the founders or the top executives to be touching everyone. And you have to have really clear values alignment, why you exist. The values should be why you exist. And then the purpose is sort of your mission. It's this big reason that everybody resonates around, and have a purpose statement. In different companies I've been at, we would come up with a one-line purpose statement. And then I think under that, you get to some of the things you talked about, because the strategy is also, strategy drives the structure of the business, so that then you get to the people part once you get that, but you can't even get to, at least I shouldn't say it that way. I've seen a lot of companies succeed without having the values and the purpose. I think the ones that really, really matter and that can have, staying power, kind of focus on those. And then you get to the strategy, and then the process and all those things start to come from this, that's at least my opinion. I think, I used to say, I can't remember if I remember the exact phrase, but, purpose drives passion, passion drives productivity, productivity drives results. And I really, really do believe that. There's an interesting book. I mean, we may have talked about this before, Managing or Leading with Noble Purpose by Lisa McLeod. She has another one, Selling with Noble Purpose. And that really resonated with me, because I just have seen so many companies that are public or not public, it doesn't matter. And if the whole focus and the goal is all about hitting a certain revenue target or milestone, that you end up with them, you miss actually why the company exists. The company exists to make a difference and to really impact an organization or impact an industry. It makes a difference to me.
Oh, that's really, really interesting. So, if you think about values, it's almost, if I'm hearing you right, it's almost as if you really need that North Star, and then once you have the North Star, then everybody can follow it and align to it. But if you don't have that North Star, then you're not going to be successful, or it's harder to be successful.
Yeah, that's right. And I've kind of waver on, sometimes I'm like, I think to me, the North Star is always the purpose, but the values enable you to get to the North Star in a meaningful way. I don't know if that makes sense, but because I sometimes like, well, is the North Star values, or is the North Star purpose? And I think the North Star to me has always been the purpose. So it's like we exist for this reason, to transform or do such and such, where values are the foundation that allow you to actually achieve that purpose. And we've all been in companies. I mean, I'm sure I'm not speaking from, you and I, probably a lot of people have been at companies where you're like, well, I never want to be in an organization like that again, where like that, there just was real value misalignment, and just like, I don't like that, life's too short.
It doesn't feel good. Yeah. So you're in this hypergrowth mode. There's stresses, on all parts of the organization. You talked about that a little bit. What are some specific parts of the organization that struggle the most? What are the pieces that are kind of hardest to keep the wheels from falling off the bus as you're growing that fast?
Yeah, that's a good question. Man, I don't know. It's hard to say. I think, without a doubt, HR has a massive challenge. Ambrosia Humphrey, when I was Vertesi, I should say, when I was at Hootsuite, just using her as an example, we started to make, initially it was like we'd meet once a week, and then there was a point in time where we were meeting, just to stand up every day, just real quickly. And they weren't necessarily bad things. It's just, you start having a global organization and lots of challenges and opportunities, really, so that's a tough one. I also think, sales, for sure, sales and marketing have massive pressures on them, because what investors and what, you know, company leadership start to get used to, if you're used to some sort of growth, the desire is to keep up that kind of growth, right? Like, and you're going to do this year after year after year. So there starts to be a lot of pressure on sales and marketing, um, to keep those numbers and to keep that stuff growing. And, you know, that's tough, right? And it's tough to keep it lined up to the purpose. You may end up, hiring a bunch of people that really don't know why you exist in some cases, right? And you don't have the, there's not the one-on-one ability to influence them, and they're in different time zones or in different countries. So I think that's super challenging. And then, the other is, in a SaaS business, they say at the 4-year mark, you know, over half of your revenue starts to come from existing customers. So there's huge pressure, once you reach that point, it's like, the snowball starts getting bigger and bigger and bigger. And sometimes the momentum will carry you along, but then you need someone in the team to actually manage all of that, so your retention is not an issue. Because if the retention becomes a problem, then it doesn't matter how much you're putting everything into a leaky bucket. It doesn't matter how much you're bringing in. And
Right.
so, yeah, it ends up being a pretty cross-functional thing. I remember years and years ago, when I was early, and I think it was on ACI, and early, my first hypergrowth company, we went from like 2 million to 4 million in 3 years. Super fun ride. And what they said was, like, you always want to scale up well before you need to. So, I've used that ever since that. Like, if I can get somebody that's way beyond where we are potentially at that current stage, if you believe, and you believe that there's a wave and the space is good and the product is good and you're going to grow, then try to get someone who's been in an early stage company and who's also been in a later stage, so that you can actually scale that. But it also goes for systems, tools, and processes. I'd always encourage my sales leaders to go, pretend we're a public company right now, and have our forecasting and our contracting, everything be as rigorous as you know up to snuff as if we were a public company, so that if we do become public, or if you're acquired, or whatever the story is, it's there's no surprises. You got it. You're doing this in a real professional way. So, but all of that stuff is hard. Like, you're trying to scale up your infrastructure when you don't have the people, and you know that there's a bunch of things you do differently, right? Yeah, it's an interesting challenge.